Thank you all for joining us and for coming tonight. I know it's cold and snowy, and this is a really busy time of year for everybody, so I want to say thank you for making it a point to come out tonight. My name is Elizabeth Thomas. I'm from Cass County, Adams Township. I am joined by all of you in a very large group of people who we just call ourselves Cass County Property Rights, and we are all just looking to protect our property rights, our property values, and our health in a rural area where Big Wind likes to set up shop. So with that, thank you again for coming. We have some displays and some handouts back there. Feel free to take a look, take some handouts if you need them. There are also books, the book by Greg Kuchner, which you've probably seen. We posted some experts from Dave's holding it up right there. We bought those from the author, and he gave us a deal, so we're just asking $5 for those. If you would like them, there's also a donation box. Feel free to donate if you can, if you would like to. We are just a small group of rural people taking in $20 at a time. We are not supported by a big company and a big wind company, so if you can feel free to donate. Anything that we collect donation-wise is all going towards our lawyer fees right now. So with that, Judy Kellums is going to come and introduce Jeremy, and then Jeremy will be ready to go.
Hello, I am Judy Kellums. I live in Harrison Township. Well, I don't live in Harrison Township. I actually live in Fulton County in Wayne Township, but we have land in Harrison Township across the county lines. So I kind of go along to each county. But anyway, our speaker this evening is Jeremy Kitson. Jeremy Kitson is a high school physics and chemistry teacher in Northwest Ohio. He spent the past few years intensely researching the effects of industrial wind turbine projects and dedicates much of his time to help educate communities like ours about wind energy issues. He's a husband, a father, an educator, a coach, and founder of the Van Wert, Ohio's wind action group, Citizens for Clear Skies. Jeremy has also spoken at Fulton and Miami County meetings. He's not paid, he just does this out of the goodness of his heart and concern for others. And now to give a warm welcome to Mr. Jeremy Kitson.
I don't think I need the microphone, so if you can't hear me, let me know, and I'll use the microphone, I guess. Like Judy said, I've probably been involved in this issue for about 2.5 years of my life now. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, in Van Wert County, right on the Indiana border. My dad's whole side of the family's from Decatur, so I do have half the Hoosier blood in me. Essentially, I went to college in Florida and played college baseball down there, but something just kept calling me home. So after 17 years of being in Florida, we had an opportunity to come back to Van Wert County and build a house on our small 38-acre farm that my grandfather purchased in the 50s. So we took a leap of faith, my wife and our 3 kids, and said, you know what, I guess we're Ohio bound. So I was very excited about being able to come back home to raise my kids on the very farm that I was raised on by my parents. About 2 years into us building our brand new house, wind turbines started going up in the north part of my county. So I started saying, wow, I was kind of taken aback at the immense size of it. I live 10 miles from the footprint of the biggest wind farm in the state of Ohio, the Blue Creek Wind Project, that's run by Iberdrola Renewables. There are 152 turbines in my county alone, 30 turbines in the county north of us in Paulding County. So it's a significant project. There are 452-foot turbines, 2 megawatt generators. I know a lot of people that live up there, including my cousin. I know a lot of farmers that live up there that signed their ground up. I know a lot of farmers up there that didn't sign their ground up. And the reviews are kind of all over the place. As in, probably the reviews are all over the place in the 3 counties that are potentially part of this project. I can tell you that it is a divisive issue. I've never really found a common ground or middle ground with somebody that believes the opposite of me. And that's not what I've been trying. It's just that you either want it or you don't. I really haven't found anybody that's kind of like, you know what, well, I can live with, this. If the parameters are this, I will be okay with it. I haven't met one person yet. And I've been kind of going around and talking with a lot of people for 2.5 years. This is really only my 3rd major speaking engagement, and it just happens to be the 3 times of this project. I kind of more or less network and connect myself through social media and the internet and email and things of that nature with people who've been doing this a lot longer than me. So by no means would I sit here and say that I'm the smartest person in the world when it comes to wind turbines, when it comes to wind energy. I feel like I've learned a lot in 2.5 years. Some of it is self-taught, some of it is self-guided, some of it is self-research. Some of it is reaching out to people that are a lot smarter than me and listening to what they have to say and trying to interpret what they have to say. I have friends that have been doing this for a decade. And sometimes they get into this Martian language and I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, man. Can you please put that into English? Because they are way smarter than I am. So I'm just going to try to share with you my experiences for the last 2.5 years. Okay, so I kind of started on my fight. I got into it about 2 years ago. The reason I got into it was not because of the project that was already up in the northern part of our county. I live 10 miles outside of that. But I found out that there was another company, Apex Clean Energy, that came in and bought up the rights to some old BP wind contracts that had been signed 67 years ago, and they're trying to dominate 7 more townships of Van Wert County. So essentially we are looking at an entire county blanket with nothing but wind turbines. All the way up to about a mile from my house. Our farm is just slightly outside the project boundary because I only live 1 mile from the Indiana line. And then we're not going to encroach upon another state and start fighting zoning laws and the differences between Ohio zoning and Indiana zoning. So thankfully we live just outside the blueprint, but that doesn't mean there's not a field that's a half a mile east of me that is in the blueprint signed up. So I said, okay, I got to figure out what we're going to do here. I don't know. All I hear is what my cousin and my friends say that live up underneath those turbines in the northern part of our county now, and I don't want to deal with that myself. So I started asking questions. And come to find out that one of my personal family friends that I've known my entire life now works for the wind developer. So I said, well, I guess I'm just going to go right to the source. So I just called her. And I said, what's going on? I hear that there's an Apex Clean Energy that's trying to blanket 7 more townships of Van Wert County with more wind turbines, bigger ones than what we have right now. She said, yes. And I said, well, what's your reasoning behind that? Don't you think that people up there have a story to tell, and that there's plenty of people up there suffering, that we don't want to do that to more people? And it didn't take long at all for that conversation to just go right downhill. And some of the lines that I've said, or some of the things that I've said in Fulton and Miami County, I'll say here tonight. I was immediately called a communist by her because I want to control my neighbor's ground. I'm telling my neighboring landowners what to do with their ground. I was told that you only own 2 acres, there's nothing you can do about it. Because I technically don't own the farm. My dad and my cousin split the farm. So I have 2 acres of the farm, but that's my 2-acre yard. So I was told that a 2-acre landowner wouldn't have any power to do anything about it. I said, okay. And then the third line she said was, nothing you can do about it, it's coming. You might as well just accept it. So I was kind of taken aback by that. So I hung up the phone, I looked at my wife, and I said, well, we just got issued a challenge, and we're going to rise to the occasion, we're going to meet that challenge. So I started doing as much work as I could that day on trying to learn about the effects of industrial wind turbines. From the generation that they put out, from the payments that they give the landowners, from the payments that they kick into the county coffers, to the townships, based on the villages of the tax structures that are in the communities. I started researching noise effects. I started researching what the safety buffer zones were behind these things, and then I started finally getting connected with other people that were concerned in Van Wert County. I'm only one of 5 people that really founded Citizens of Clear Skies. So we kind of divided and conquered. You know, what I'm going to talk about tonight is kind of the things that I've learned and the things that I'm the one that usually speaks about. So there might be questions that you might have later, and that might not be one of my wheelhouse areas. I'll answer to the best of my ability. If I don't know the answer, I'll say, I don't know the answer, and I have no reason to lie. But you have a big issue facing your county and your community. Because once you saddle yourself to this and you decide to go with it, it's there. It's going to outlive all of us. We will be dead in the ground before these turbines go away if Cass County decides to go with that. And I am not here to tell you what to do. I've had plenty of private conversations with farmers who live in this community, and not once have I told them what I felt they should do. Because ultimately it is your ground. It's your community. You need to decide what to do. All I can do is provide you with what I believe, what I think, with some links, some facts, some stats, and some articles that kind of allow me to arrive where I am in my mindset on wind turbines. And then ultimately it's the folks of Cass County that have to decide what they want to do. And I know this. One of the things that bothers me about Ohio is that we have state setbacks. The state tells us what the proper siting distances is from wind turbines to your property lines or to your homes. At the very least in Indiana, you have an advantage because you have more local control of that zoning. So at least you have the opportunity to make decisions here in your own community and not let people in Indianapolis make decisions for you on zoning these things to where they're never going to feel the negative impacts of them. Right now we're fighting a state senator in Ohio that lives in Cleveland. He's part owner of the Cleveland Indians. He wants to site turbines and thinks that it's okay for them to be 1,225 feet from your house. Currently, Ohio law is 1,125 feet to your property line. That law changed in 2014, and essentially the wind developer said that's completely shut down wind development in Ohio. There hasn't been any projects that were able to really be developed since then, and that's a complete lie. Because there's 4 projects in the county north of me right now. 3 of them have been developed since the law changed. One just got developed by the company that wants to come here res in Hardin County, Ohio, just this last year. So wind development is not being shut down by restrictive setbacks in Ohio of 1,125 feet to the property line. Wind is being shut down because not enough people are signing the ground up to be part of the project. That's the reason. But that's not what the wind lobby and multi-million-dollar wind companies are going to tell your state legislators and your local legislators. They're going to give you the same lines that I've heard in countless communities in multiple states across the country. They all say the same thing. And no offense, it's very unoriginal. Usually when I see somebody talking about pro-wind and we get onto a specific topic of the many variables that are involved, I know right where they're going to go. Most of the time I know what studies they're going to cite and what authors wrote those things. Because they're not original. It's all the same stuff. It's really not hard to refute this stuff. It's not. You just got to pay attention and listen to what they say. Okay, so that's kind of some personal things about me and whatnot. Okay, one of my major problems with industrial wind turbines is zoning. Properly zoning things. Okay? The people that sign up their ground will largely say, you're trying to restrict what I'm doing to my ground. It's my ground, I'm going to do what I want with it. I'm not trying to restrict anybody from doing anything with their ground. Because there's always been zoning laws that exist in communities. And the minute that you start to encroach upon your neighboring landowner's property lines with some sort of structure, regardless of what it is, there are usually zoning laws that say you have to ask for permission, or you have to be granted some sort of variance. The minute that you're encroaching upon somebody else's ground, and it could impact their ground, you're probably going to have to get permission in some way, or some shape or form. They argue these things are wind farms, and I think that's the biggest oxymoron in the history of energy policy. These things are not farms. They're industrial electric generators. They are power plants, so just call them that. Don't be disingenuous. These things tower 600 feet into the sky. Rotor blades turning 150 miles per hour to tip. They do make noise. They do give off inaudible noise called infrasound, and they do affect people's quality of life. They will not admit to that. They will discredit you. Trust me, there's probably 10 pro-wind people in this community right now trying to discredit me somehow right now, saying that I'm paid off by coal, or you know what, the Cook brothers are funding me. I'm a big oil person. I like dirty energy. I don't like the environment. They discredit you instead of listening to your concerns. And that's a bunch of baloney. If they were just more straightforward and actually addressed the concerns that people have in communities, they'd probably be a lot more successful. But for whatever reason, they don't do that. They want to be combative. They want to tell you that you're a loon, that you don't like the environment, that you hate funding schools, you want schools to be poor, you don't want kids to have resources, and that gets old. Because there isn't a person in this room that doesn't want a clean environment. There isn't a person in this room that does not want to be energy independent. There isn't a person in this room that doesn't want to fund their high school right down the street right here. Everybody wants those things. We might just disagree on how to get there the best way. So the big thing is zoning is number one for me. Zoning should be equitable. Equitable meaning fair for everybody. Not just landowners that lease for turbines. These things are dangerous. There was a fire yesterday in Oklahoma that burned a significant amount of acreage from a wind turbine. I don't know what it's going to take. Is it going to take somebody getting killed before setbacks are safe distances from homes? My thought is pretty simple. Equitable zoning means if you're going to put something up on your land that's going to encroach on my land and it could endanger my family, and you're going to extend a safety zone onto my property, that should be measured to the property line, not a house. Nothing should be zoned to a house. I've never in my life ever heard of any zoning whatsoever to somebody's house. I don't understand that. I don't understand why that's such a hard thing to get. So, in my opinion, you have to fight for equitable zoning. The zoning laws in your land ordinance are completely unsafe in my eyes in this county. I know it's 1,000 feet to a house, correct? Okay, and I know Res says that they're not going to do anything closer than 1,500 feet to the house because of a liability issue or company policy or something, right? That's still shorter than what wind turbine manufacturers even recommend. It's still 140 feet shorter than what wind turbine manufacturers recommend. So if they know that there is a safety zone that extends out in a circle from these turbines, that should not extend onto your property. That should never be measured to your house. Otherwise, are your kids safe playing in your yard? Are they safe walking back a lane to maybe your woods where the turbine sited on the neighboring landowners? Those things have to be sited on that property and stay on that property. Period. That's equitable zoning in my opinion. You have to protect all landowners, not just people that are interested in signing up for wind turbines. And if you're in here and you've signed up for wind turbines and you're all for this project, I'm not against you. You have to make that decision for yourself. I'm not against people that have signed up their ground. I'm not against people that are fighting for their ground. I'm not against people that are on the fence. I'm not against anybody in this room. Just tell you what I believe. There's ways that people can have a discussion that's productive and not be discredited to where maybe, for the first time in the history of this industry, that, in my experience, somebody can come to a fair and reasonable conclusion. So zoning has to be no property line. There are several studies and there are several things that you can find online that suggest what safe and equitable zoning should be. And in 2017, this year in March, Michigan State put out a significant 28-page study, I believe it's 28 pages, on what they feel are recommended safety setbacks for industrial wind turbines. And if you pay attention to what's going on in Michigan, this has been going on a lot longer than Ohio or Indiana. They have a few companies up there and some utilities like DTE that are really pushing wind energy. And really, the wind resource in Michigan is not good. There's only a few areas of Michigan that have decent wind resource. And one of those regions is called the Thumb. It's up north of Detroit. And that entire area of Michigan is completely blinded. I think there's 600 some turbines in Huron County alone. So, these people in Michigan have an idea of what's going on. They've been in this issue, in this fight for a long time. So we might want to just heed their advice a bit and compare your wind ordinance to what Michigan State recommends and go from there and see what can happen for Cass County. Okay? The one thing that they recommend is 1,640 feet. That's at a minimum. And they define 1,640 feet as acceptable in communities that are homogeneously in support in general of the project. So you have to figure out what you define as homogeneously in support. What is that? Is that 70% of the people in this room are in support of 1,640 feet or want wind turbines? I don't even know what that means. But I do know this, that 1,640 feet matches the safety manual recommendations from Vestas and Nordex, two of the major wind turbine manufacturers in the world. And I just saw last week in the Freedom of Information Request Act, somebody in Fulton County, that the res representative said that those numbers that are being cited by the anti-wind people in this community are outdated. So 1640 is outdated according to res. I agree. Because that stuff, those recommendations were put out 10 years ago. How much we are interpreting now. So I think it's too short. So if they want to say that that study is outdated, I agree with them. It should be longer than 1640. That's the first thing I read when I read that res letter from their big rig out in Minnesota. I was like, man, you're right. Turbines are getting bigger, 1640 should get bigger. Let's be honest. Some of the other recommendations that they put out. Oops, I gotta go back one. In communities that are completely split on this issue, where there is a division in the community, they recommend doubling that distance, which is longer than what I believe most of the communities here are asking for. I think you guys are asking for a half mile, 2640, right? Well, their recommendation is 3280 in communities that are deeply divided, as being equitable zoning for all landowners, to protect all landowners. So Michigan State kind of recommends different setback distances based on what they feel the dynamic is of the community being affected. So if you're in a community that demonstrably supports it, they think 1640 is minimum. That's 640 feet longer than your wind ordinance now. And that wind ordinance is to your house. There is no way somebody's going to common sense and use logic to convince me that a 660-foot, 3 megawatt or whatever generator, 1,000 feet from your house is safe. That's ridiculous. It's completely unsafe. Ask them to prove to you where their setbacks come from. From what I understand, a lot of counties over here have molded their wind ordinances from other counties. And I always hear about White County, Benton County out west, and blah, blah, blah. They love their wind turbines. Yeah, okay. Where does that 1,000 feet come from? Where did it come from? I know that there was a plan commission at some point here that had to put that number together. I would be absolutely, utterly shocked if that number was not at the guidance of a wind development or the wind industry. I guarantee you it was at the guidance of the wind industry. They cannot prove where their numbers come from. Ask Res to do it. Say, I would like to see your scientific, independent, peer-reviewed study that cites that 1,000 feet or your 1,500 feet liability from a home is proper. Please show me the science that proves that. I've asked that 100 times and I haven't seen anybody give me anything yet. I haven't seen one wind developer offer me anything scientific that proves that number's right. So it's my opinion, it's pretty simple. They're going to take the shortest number they can, throw it against the wall, and pray the community says, sounds good to us. And those are the first communities they're going to prey upon when they're looking for wind development. You know why they're here? Because all the desolate areas of the United States have pretty much been dominated by these things. They've already put them everywhere where their people won't live. So they only have one choice now, encroach upon people. Ask them to prove to you where their recommended setbacks come from. Because I can probably tell you, paraphrasing of course, that one of their answers is, well, that's just industry standards. As compared to what? And they're going to bring you 20 different setback distances that are the same or shorter from 20 different counties in 20 different states. Blah, blah, blah county in Illinois, blah, blah, blah county in Nebraska, blah, blah, blah in Oklahoma. That's what they're going to say. That's right, that you guys all agree on those things in all these different states. Where's the science behind it? Prove to me. Show me the paper where some scientist said, you know what, that's safe. Because they're not going to be able to do it. Or at least I've never had them be able to do it that. So that's one thing you can completely fight, is defining what equitable zoning is. They have to protect the non-participating landowners just as much as the participating landowners. And again, I'm not telling you to sign up or don't sign up. Because truthfully, it doesn't impact me whether you sign up or not, because I don't live in Cass County. And that's another thing that some of the people have been saying they don't like me here already. Some outsiders coming in and telling us what to do. No, I'm really not. I'm just giving you perspective of where I've been for 2.5 years. It's a daily grind. It will consume you. It is very hard to get away from it because you know you're facing a multi-million-dollar company that has people doing this for a full-time wage, trying to bring this in. So if you let it go for 2 days, you don't know what's going to happen. they might have gotten to another person that's important in the community. So it doesn't go away. You're going to worry about it forever. So I would strongly suggest that you really look at the study done by Michigan State. The second thing I would encourage you to do is look at Europe. Look at what Europe's doing. They're not shortening their setbacks. They're making them longer. They've had industrial wind turbines over there a lot longer than we've had here, because they've had a lot more favorable legislation on the backs of their taxpayers that allow these projects to be developed, because they are economically not viable without our money. These companies have millions of dollars and they cannot build projects without the help of the American taxpayer. They just can't do it. It's too expensive. Europe's seeing the light now. They're seeing in Germany, who's supposedly this lover of industrial wind turbines, they're seeing what's happening to their citizens. Can't afford to pay their utility bills anymore. They have forced so much wind, unreliable wind, onto the grid that people are paying astronomically high costs for it. They're paying for it in their taxes, and they're paying for it now in their utility bills. And they're encroaching upon people, and people are consistently complaining about the effects of living under these things, so they're extending their setbacks. They're extending them well greater than what Ohio has, and well greater than what you have here right now. So if we don't pay attention to countries that have been dabbling in this a lot longer than us, then we're fools. We should be paying attention to what other countries are doing. And you can go look at what's happening in England. You can go look at what's happening in Denmark. You can go look at what's happening in Germany. They're limited in their setbacks because they are starting to become well aware of what these things are capable of doing to human beings and your quality of life. And then the last couple links up there, that's where the Vestas and Nordex 1640 is confirmed as well. And this, by all means, I've already shared it with some people here. Have it. Share it away. Any person in this room, you want this, you can have it. All you gotta do is give us your email address, and you can have it. You can go read these articles for yourself. So I think at the very least, the wind ordinance here has to be looked at. And I get the articles from is it the Pharaoh's Tribune, is that what it's called? I get those and I read some of those, and I see, no offense to any county commissioners, I see one county commissioner that's completely rigid. We are not moving meetings to accommodate one issue. We're not changing this wind ordinance. Those people answer to you. You elected them. They're not dictators, they're elected officials. That would upset me if an elected official said that was going to be completely rigid and not listen to my point of view. Because they're paid to listen to us. We're the constituents. Now that said, I wouldn't be bad with them. I truly empathize with them because I wouldn't want that job. I would not want to be one of 3 or 4 or 5 people on the zoning board or in your county commissioner's office to have to decide really whether this is worth it or not. Because it's a lose-lose for them. They're going to take somebody off no matter what decision they make. So I would strongly encourage you to be empathetic of that and try your best not to get combative and try to work with them. There has to be a way that it can work out. But those are what I strongly recommend as far as safety recommendations. It's got to start at least at 1640, if not longer, to the property line to guarantee the safest possible zoning and equitable zoning for people that want these things and people that don't. The Michigan State study, you won't find that online anymore. It was online for a couple of months, and then it got pulled. And I know a lot of people in Michigan that are pretty connected, and they're insiders, and it's their opinion that the wind industry put a ton of pressure on Michigan State and threatened to pull their donations and research funding and things of that nature. They pulled the study down. You can still see it though, because if you go to the Interstate Informed Citizens Coalition of Michigan, the full study, all 28 pages, is on their website. I know the director of that organization. He gets defamed all the time, being called a paid coal and oil lobbyist, which none of it's true. He's just a zoning person and a rural resident, like all of us, fighting for what he believes in. That's all it is. So check it out. And like I said, if you want to actually read the entire Michigan State recommendation, The second slide of this, the page 2, you can read it. That link is embedded in there. Anything that's underlined on here, just click on it. It'll take you right to that article, and you can read it. So essentially what I've said is, this has got to be measured to your property line, in my opinion. And it has to be longer than what your wind ordinance is right now. It is my opinion that that's why res is here. That's why when developers target specific communities. Because they essentially look for a few things. Number one, does the community have a weak wind ordinance that we can take advantage of? Number two, does the state require utility consumers to purchase renewable energy? Thankfully in Indiana, you don't have that. You only have goals in Indiana. There are renewable energy purchasing goals that utilities are encouraged to buy renewable energy from. In Ohio, we have it as a law. We have a state RPS, a renewable portfolio standard. And I believe there are 22 states in this country that force their consumers to buy expensive renewable energy. Ours is 3.5% in Ohio right now. So if I look at my electric bill, there's two rates on it. One rate's 7.5 cents a kilowatt hour, one's 9.5 cents a kilowatt hour. I'll let you decide which one is wind and solar. It's not the 7.5, it's the 9.5. So consumers in Ohio are being forced to buy a product, and I think that's wrong. I don't think the government should be telling us what we have to buy. I was a big time, outspoken verbal opponent of Obamacare. And I don't think that healthcare is a free market. I think those healthcare companies and those drug companies are screwing us just as much as anybody. But the government telling us that we have to buy something, I don't agree with that. And that's essentially what's happening in Ohio. And that is scheduled to increase to 12.5% in 2027. So by 2027, all Ohioans have to be buying 12.5% of their power from wind and solar. More expensive. Raising costs on all of us. Thankfully, there's a bill in Congress that's looking to actually revoke that and return our purchasing mandates back to goals like you have in Indiana. But you definitely want to pay attention to that in Indianapolis. If you ever hear the words RPS, Indiana is going to an RPS, call your legislator and say, no way. You are telling us what we have to buy. The citizens should have a choice on that. They want to bring wind energy to the market, they want to bring solar to the market, let them bring it to the market at a price that we can agree on for one purchase. You have that right now, but pay attention to that. Because that's how they can also help roll over more development of solar and wind in a state. By the state telling you have to buy that energy. So be careful with that. So I kind of given you my ideas on what I feel proper zoning is. I know that this diagram's been around because I've seen it on the Facebook page. Okay? If you don't understand what trespass zoning is, this diagram is a great explanation of it. The diagram uses that 1,640 feet that I talked about in the Michigan State study, plus the Vestas and NORDEP's recommendations. Okay? So essentially they say that 1640 from the turbine is essentially a non-safe zone. And they cite things like tower failure, fire, blade throw. Don't linger within 1,640 feet of a turbine in case of an accident. So this diagram is built on that. So if you've got the big landowner up there that leases for a wind turbine, then you got the smaller landowner here, and those turbines get sited to your house, they're essentially extending an unsafe zone onto your property, stealing your property and safety rights. That's not equitable. That's completely wrong. I would assume that most people in here are agriculturally related. You guys are probably farmers. You ever build a machine shop? You ever build an out barn? You ever build a grain leg, a silo? You ever build it close to your neighbor's property line without getting permission from them? I would probably guess that you can't do that. I would probably guess you can't put your cord dryer right, hundreds and hundreds of acres away from your house and put it right next to your neighbor's house, but it's still on your property line. I would bet you probably aren't going to be able to get away with that. This shouldn't be any different. These things are not agricultural, they're industrial. be zoned with safe industrial standards. So don't let them extend that safety setback onto your property by measuring it to your house. That's theft. They're stealing your property. And that's essentially what the term trespass zoning is. That you are having your development rights, your property rights, your safety rights stolen by somebody that leases for a wind turbine. I wouldn't stand for that. I would get a lawyer and figure out what my rights are. Do I have rights? Can I fight this? If you've ever read some of these contracts, these wind energy contracts, there's some serious concerning language in them. Now, I haven't read the entire res contract, I'll be honest with you. I read it to like section 8. I'm about halfway through. And I had like 3 or 4 things as I was reading and typing them into my phone. And said, wow, that's a no-no for me. Wow, that's another no-no for me. That's another no-no for me. If you've signed one of these things, or if you are thinking about signing one of these things, find a lawyer that's not somehow connected or embedded with the wind industry and see what they say. I haven't had one lawyer tell me that these contracts are written in the favor of the landowner. They are lopsidedly in favor of the wind developer, and they can do whatever they want when you grant your ground to them as an easement. They can do whatever they want. And they can go ahead and say that, well, we're going to work with you, and we're going to put it here, and we're going to have the access road here. That's what they said to the people in Ohio. The reality is this, is they're going to try to jam as many turbines in the smallest area possible to connect transmission lines together to save them capital costs as much as possible. So when you sign away that easement, they can say whatever they want. But the language in that contract, from what I read, says they can do anything they want. All the way up to restricting whether you can move trees on your property not to get rid of the view. There's all kinds of property restrictive things as far as the language in these contracts. So I would read it thoroughly and carefully. And there's a lot of legalese in there, and I'm not a lawyer, so some of these adjectives and words I don't even know what they mean. I got to type them into my phone and say, what the heck does that word even mean? So I take it to a lawyer. And I take it to a lawyer outside of this community, no offense, unless you know the lawyer personally, they're going to give you great advice. Because you have no idea who the wind companies get to, because they get to a lot of people. It's just the reality. They've gotten to a lot of people in man work. There are a lot of people on the tape, somehow getting under the table. And we're just trying to make those connections. So I would have your lawyers come through this and give you the best possible advice before you sign these things. Check for gag orders too. Most of these contracts say somewhere in there, the tenant has reserved their right to complain about noise effects, shadow flicker, infrasound pulsations. There's language in there. So when these wind companies say that doesn't exist, people aren't hurt, they're not getting hurt by an infrasound, they're not getting hurt out of the noise, shadow flicker doesn't hurt anybody, then there's gag orders in their contracts that admit that it's true. That's what I don't get. I'm like, that's hypocrisy. Then why does there need to be a gag order saying these things in your contract? If you verbally discredit people that say it is true, and you say, well, here's 20 different studies by people that say this doesn't happen, well, then why is there language in the contract that says that the person, once they sign it, can't complain about it? It doesn't make any sense to me. So review those contracts. Another thing I suggest, have your lawyer draft a contract. Have your lawyer draft a wind energy agreement easement for the wind companies. Draft it on your terms, bring it to the wind companies, see if they'll sign it. But they won't. Because they can't do what they want. If they want to be fair, they want to be good neighbors, and they want to be good stewards, like they always say, we just want the best. What's the best for Logansport? We want the best for Cass County. Well, then they should be willing to let your lawyer write a contract, give it to them, and they should be readily, hey, that sounds great to me. We can put a turbine on your property on your terms, we'll do that. But they won't. Because they know that's not how the contracts work. So be careful of those things. You guys probably have the term shadow flicker. States generally have laws on what is acceptable flicker and what's not. Some states are crazy restrictive, some states are not. Ohio, it's 30 hours a year. New Hampshire, it's 8 hours a year. I can tell you this right now, that I have friends that live in the Blue Creek Wind Farm that get 30 hours a month.
Hey, Mama.
And they can complain all they want, and nothing gets mitigated. Utilities are regulated in Ohio by the Public Utilities Committee, PUCO of Ohio. And essentially what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to call the developer, let them know the problem. And they're all real nice to you on the phone, and they hang up the phone and say, so then you call the state. Nothing gets mitigated. I have a good friend that gets sometimes 2 to 3 hours of flicker a day. An hour or so in the morning and an hour or so at night. He's got 6 turbines around his house. 4 on one side, 2 on the other. 4 straight to the east of him, 2 straight to the west of him. When it's coming up, the sun's going down. If it's a sunny day, he gets it. And his wife has been sick. And they could not figure out why. Took her to the Cleveland Clinic. She somehow has developed vertigo. They can't prove that it's from the flickering effects of the turbine. But I know that she's been sick a lot. Lost her balance, dizzy, fell down in her own home. And he's positive that's because of this. So I don't know what your wind ordinance says about flicker. There's probably something in there about it. Figure out what it is, because I never got to that part. And then there has to be something about what is the mitigation efforts. Okay? If the company reaches that demand, or that reaches that maximum amount of flicker that they can cast upon your home, what power do you have as citizens to stop it? What is the mitigating process? If there is no mitigating language in your wind ordinance, that's wrong. You have to be protected. It has to protect all of you. So that's one thing to definitely think about as well. What's your wind ordinance say about flicker? What's the mitigating effects? When you get that maximum, what is the county going to do? How are they going to work with the residents to shut it down? Or to mitigate how much work you're getting? Most wind ordinances I've seen over here have a noise limit of 50 to 60 decibels. That's too loud. They say, well, it's no louder than a refrigerator. Human conversations that we're having right now are about 40 to 45 decibels. I would pretty much assume that at 3 o'clock in the morning, you wouldn't want to be like this, talking to me like this all night long. Hey, buddy, how's it going? That'd probably be a bit long. And I assume you would want a refrigerator compressor pump turning on and off all night long right beside your ear. That's too loud. And if you want to do some research on somebody that's done a ton of acoustical impacts of wind turbines, Robert Rand. Dr. Robert Rand is an acoustical engineer. He has all kinds of studies out there on what he deems would be acceptable in terms of the public health. And he said anywhere between 20 and 30 at the most should be acceptable. We should not accept noise impacts of over 20 to 30 decibels in our house, unless we want our quality of life to go down. So I promise you that the noise limitations in your wind ordinance are not strong enough. Not according to an expert like Robert Rand. Because he says basically once noise over 20 decibels occur, people start to vigorously object to the noise, regardless of where the noise comes from. I would imagine that in the towns around here, you probably have like radio, stereo noise, like ordinances, right? Can the kids just drive down the street here at 2 a.m. just cranking it up? Or can they get pulled over by the cops? I would imagine that there's noise ordinances after a certain time of the night, right? And that the cops can probably pull over a kid that's banging out, pumping out a stereo system at 2 a.m. right by your house. Why should this be any different? It shouldn't be any different. So noise impacts are real. People cannot sleep. All they hear is all night long. Some of them describe it as that whooshing sound I just made. Some of them describe it as just nothing but, it's like a constant jet airliner over your house, but it just doesn't go away. Just constant. And that's all you hear, all night long. People can't even enjoy their backyards. I got a good friend, Gene Poole, who's a small business owner. Completely destroyed him and his wife's life. They don't even go outside and enjoy their deck anymore. And they can't leave. They've lived there for 40 years. What are they going to do now? There's nothing they can do. When they were building that wind project, he swears that he just poured brand new garage floor, concrete, and they did a blast for a turbine hole, cracked his garage floor. And all he said is, I just want a new floor, man. I heard the blast and the floor was cracked. The wind turbine company hired a geologist And that geologist did a 6-inch report on there's no way that that blast could have cracked your floor. So he got screwed. He paid for it himself. That's just one man, one story. When companies say this does not exist, does not hurt you, I disagree. Infrasound is real. A lot of things give off infrasound. A lot of researchers and doctors say that this is more dangerous than the audible noise because you can't hear it. You don't know that it's there, you just kind of sense that it's there. There's all kinds of medical experts that say it messes with the circulatory and pulmonary systems of the human body. There's some study I just saw, I think maybe it was a badger population or a wolverine population. There's a veterinarian that lives in Miami County. She posted, I was like, huh, I've never even read anything like that. There's some significant impact to a certain species of wild animal that these things were dwindling in numbers around the wind farm. And there was research that basically said it's infrasound impacts. You can't stand it. It's driving crazy. You got it. If you want to learn about infrasound, all you got to do is look up Dr. Alex Salt. He works at Washington University in St. Louis. He's done some great work in the cochlear fluids lab. Essentially, he believes that we have different kinds of ear follicles or hair follicles in our ears that obviously help us with balance and sound and things of that nature. And he says that they detect infrasound and it drives people crazy. So there's 3 different articles right there that all talks about his work and what he calls vibroacoustic disease. You can't hear it. It's just there. And turbines emit it. I just saw a study last week, and I don't have it in my presentation, that they saw that infrasound waves travel 6.5 miles from a project footprint. 6.5 miles. So for somebody like me, I'm 10 miles away. Who's to say that maybe couldn't travel 10 miles? I don't know. This stuff is serious, and it's believed to be linked to a lot of different health problems in people. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Shirley Wind Project in the Green Bay area of Wisconsin, Brown County, Wisconsin. There are several medical doctors up there that are certain that people are getting sick from living in a industrial wind project. And I think there was somewhere, I might be wrong on the number, but I thought I saw 50 people. 50 people completely moved out of the blueprint. There's only 8 turbines in that project. From what I hear, Res wants at least 80 turbines here. I've even heard up to 300 if they get all 3 counties. So we're talking about a very, very small, micro-scale wind turbine project that 2 professional medical doctors in the community of Wisconsin say their people are they're getting ill, they're being sick, they're being forced to get sick by living on the wind turbines. And they're certain that it's infrasound. So you definitely want to look up Dr. Robert Rand on noise impacts. You definitely want to look up Dr. Alex Salt on infrasound impacts. The main doctor that's in Brown County, Wisconsin is Herb Cousins. Coussons. And in that county, there used to be a person who was the county health director. And every time this person would go into the project, would get ill. And would come back out and would feel fine. And didn't do anything about it. Eventually, word got out, and that person got fired. But they were hiding something. Oh, I can't be in wind turbines. Yet, that person got sick every time they went in that project. So if you want to see some real infrasound impacts for what these things can do to people, Brown County, Wisconsin, just look it up. When you look it up on the internet, read away. It's a crazy story. I know I don't want that in my house. And then the last thing on this slide, did you hear about the sonic attack on our embassy in Cuba? I think 21 of our diplomats were getting seriously ill by just showing up to work. It turns out that somehow somebody was placing infrasound on our building that was making people ill. They pulled people out and sent them back to the United States. Now, there are scientists that argue that there's no way that's infrasound. There are scientists that do. I don't know whether it was infrasound or not, but I know there's a lot of scientists that say it was, on top of the ones that say it wasn't. I'm not a doctor. But I know this. People were getting ill. 21 people were getting ill with the same exact symptoms. And when they were shipped home, they were fine. And that, ironically, came from the New York Times. I'm not a real big reader of the New York Times for obvious reasons. I'm kind of a conservative, rural, Midwestern guy, so I really don't read that little right much, but that came from them. I just found some studies from this guy, Dr. Paul Stomer. For at least 4 decades, there have been reports of science in scientific literature of people being made ill by low-frequency sound and infrasound. In the last several years, there have been an increasing number of such reports with respect to wind turbines. That is word for word right out of his study. And I got the link at the bottom. The paper also says nobody understands why only a fraction of the population is affected and how infrasound affects people. Because what I have found in my experience in 2.5 years is these things don't bother some people, and they drive other people crazy. I don't know why it bothers some and not bothers others. The people that it don't bother, obviously, are the ones that are pushing it and saying, thinking it's good. That's their prerogative. It doesn't affect them. I get it. But I've also heard people in our county that have wind turbines say, you just kind of get used to them after a while. Yeah, we really don't notice them anymore. Those are kind of the phrases they use. To me, that means that's code word for, yeah, I'll take my $9,000 turbine payment and deal with it, I guess. So there's plenty of people out there that you can do research on that talk about noise and infrasound. And that they're certain that it affects people. So it's just like pollution. It's just noise pollution. And suboptimal noise pollution. I don't want my family exposed to that, I know that. Developers say these things are not true. They say there are no scientific independent studies that say what I just said is true. Here's 21 peer-reviewed articles that say it is true. Right here on my phone. So somebody's lying. I don't know who's lying. But I know this. There are 21 scientifically independent peer-reviewed studies right here on my phone that are also embedded in this presentation that say wind turbine noise and infrasound hurts human beings. So somebody's lying. I don't think it's me. So I would definitely look into those kinds of things. They also say, oh, these things will hurt property value. There's no evidence that suggests that wind turbines hurt your property value. Ask them common sense questions then. If you live in rural Indiana, you probably live in rural Indiana like I live in rural Ohio for a reason. I live in the country for a reason. I like it quiet. I don't want to see things. I can tolerate a hog barn. I can tolerate that because I live in a community that's agriculturally zoned. I can tolerate the dairy barn when they spray the liquid manure on the alfalfa field 2 parcels over from me. That's agricultural. What am I going to do? I can tolerate those things. But I'm not going to tolerate turning the bastardizing the rural community and making it industrial. I'm not tolerating that. Not unless it's going to be safe and it's right, and they're going to be right on these noise impacts, and they're going to be right on the infrasound impacts. They better be darn sure. I've told the wind developer, if you go ahead and do this, I will sue you. I'll go bankrupt. I'll sell my house and bankrupt myself to sue you. Unless you can prove to me with science that I'm wrong. Who would live in an industrial wind project? If given a choice, who would do that? I know I would. If I've got 2 houses that are comparable, one's 30 miles from a wind project and one's right in the middle of the project, I might even like that house in the wind project better. I'm still living down there. That's just common sense to me. I wouldn't choose to live in one of these things. In fact, I think people will leave. People that are not attached to this community probably will leave. They swear it doesn't hurt your home values, and that's baloney. There's an independent property appraiser out of Chicago, Illinois, Michael McCann, that has done an extensive nationwide study of multiple wind projects that say it does. And he is defamed constantly by the wind industry. The project manager of your project defamed him in public at a Shiawassee County meeting in Michigan. And then ironically, another Freedom of Information Request Act thing that I saw from RES basically defamed people that defamed him. So I guess their logic is, let's defame people for calling him a defamer. He called out Michael McCann. Read the McCann study. Don't hear it from me. I think there was 27 states. And he showed significant property devaluation. There's property devaluation happening in Europe and in England. You can find studies over there where people, their properties have depreciated by at least 12%, some of them up to even bigger, 50 or 60%. He's not the only one though. There's Dr. Martin Heinzelman as well. And then there's the Appraisal 1 group out of Wisconsin. The Appraisal 1 study is significant. And I think one of the residents of Miami really dug into it, started pulling out key pieces of information and posting on the Miami County page. And I didn't even get into it in that much detail. I got on the next slide, I was like, oh, there you go. So I don't know how they can say that they don't hurt property values. I think what they'd say is, it actually increases your value. Well, it might increase your taxable income, but it's really going to increase the value of your property. I don't know how that could. So there's plenty of studies out there. McCann, Heinzelman, who I have on the next page. And then the Appraisal 1 study, which I have on the page after this. And to get back to Mr. Little, he defamed Michael McCann in a presentation in Shiawassee County, Michigan. And he went to Energy Forum just like this. He was given 15 minutes to state his case. Then my friend Kevin Martin stated his case for 15 minutes, and then there was a question and answer period. And at the end of that, the elected officials asked both gentlemen to send their studies in to the elected officials. Martin sent his as whole. The slide where Lilla defamed Michael McCann was omitted, and he sent that in. So he deleted his slide that he presented in public and sent that to the county commissioners. He wasn't working for Apex much longer after that. I can't say that's why he got fired or why he got reassigned or maybe he took a job as res or whatever, but maybe it's ironic, I don't know. But there's a YouTube video of it. I have a YouTube video at the bottom of this slide. You can watch the whole forum. You can watch Mr. Little present for 15 minutes. You can watch Kevin present for 15 minutes. You can watch the question and answer period, and you can see whether he defamed Michael McCann and Kevin Martis himself. And now Rez is saying that, that the anti-wind people of the 3 counties of this project are defaming Brad. So they're defaming you for defaming him. And I got right there on the YouTube video that he did defame 2 people. You can't get away from it. I don't know how you get away from it. There's cameras on me all the time. So I better watch what I say. Because if I say something that's inaccurate, it can be completely refuted. And I'm sure that I've said things that I was off. It is what it is. We all make mistakes when we're speaking. But I can tell you right now, if you go to the 50-minute mark of that YouTube video, you'll see where he defames him. The other thing he said is he's never seen a safety manual recommending setbacks. That was another topic that Kevin brought up in that meeting, so he's definitely heard of them. Whether he's read them or not, I don't know, but he's heard of them. So he's not oblivious that they do exist. Okay? This one's a good one. Read through this study. It's going to take hours. But from me reading it for a couple hours, I saw these property value studies by Appraisal 1 in Wisconsin. Home values depreciated by 11% at the minimum, up to a possible 60%. And I forget, I was looking at one, don't quote me on these exact numbers, but it was something like a person that bought a house for like 75. When project came in, house was surrounded, sold it for like 25. Could you read it? I sold it for 25. $50,000 hit. I live 11 miles outside of the blueprint of this project right now, and I know what my house is worth. I know what I owe on it, obviously, and I know how much equity I have in it. And my good friend is a realtor. He said, you're not going to get out of it what it was assessed at last time. He said it's definitely down a certain amount of money. I don't know exactly how much. And I know this, my cousin, like I said, lives in the footprint, and I know their house is depreciated. They had it appraised, it just didn't appraise for what it would have appraised for without the turns. So I just common sense it on You know, people that say these things don't hurt your property value, I just turn it right back on and say, would you choose to live in a project if given the choice? If you had a choice, would you choose to be like, you know what? Living under 42, 660-foot turbines all around, that sounds great, let's do that. I don't know anybody that does that. It's just common sense to me. Last thing I'll say on this. If Res is so certain that I'm wrong and they're right about property values, they shouldn't have any problem offering me a property value guarantee then. Go to them and say, hey, you are certain that turbines don't hurt my property value. I'm getting it assessed right now before this project goes up. And if I ever want to sell, you're paying the difference. You should offer that. If they want to be good stewards and good faith neighboring participants in your community, that shouldn't be a big deal at all, because they're adamant that it doesn't hurt your property values. So give me a guarantee, no problem. You say it doesn't happen, that's fine with me. Give me a guarantee. I might support it a little bit more than what I do right now. If you can promise me, with your own good faith and your own dollars, which are our dollars, by the way, our tax dollars, that you're going to make up the difference when I ever sell my home for a lesser value than what it is before the turbines go up. They're not going to give you that, though. They're going to say, well, nobody does that. Well, of course they don't do that. Why don't you be the first? Set the standard. Be the greatest wind energy developer in the United States of America. Make sure everybody gets what they should get. They're not going to do that. Ask them to see what they say. Here's another one that drives me crazy. Clean, green, homegrown produced energy. How can anybody be against that? What? You don't believe in climate change? You're one of those right-wing, Breitbart climate change zones that doesn't exist, right? You get that stuff thrown at you all the time. You want to see some numbers? Here are the numbers. We produce 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide annually. Human output. Natural processes like volcanic eruptions and just natural things that happen on the Earth's crust put another 645 million tons of carbon dioxide into the air. The fourth bullet point is a pro-wind lean. Pro-wind, they love wind development. You read that, and you will see all their snake oil salesman comments. In 2014, I believe it's 2014, they said global wind turbines mitigated 400 million tons of carbon dioxide. And they're going to tell you that, well, every megawatt we generate is replacing this many megawatts that a coal plant would pollute the environment with. The reality is there is no wind development without a coal plant. It doesn't exist. Because the wind doesn't blow all the time. And even when the wind does blow, it doesn't meet the parameters of the variables of the wind speeds that they need to generate their nameplate capacity. It just doesn't happen. When you watch the weather report, do you believe the guy 5 days down the road? Probably not. He's probably okay for a day or two, right? Got the third 3 day, the 5 day, and the 7 day. That 7 day forecast, that guy's full of crap. Because it might say it's only 32 and snowing, and it's 55 and sunny. Well, that's what we're counting on here for wind power. It's a variable resource. It's intermittent. It doesn't always produce. In fact, the windiest regions of the United States, it only produces 30 to 35% of the time. In wind-rich states like Minnesota and Iowa. So these things have bad capacity factors. And they cost an exorbitant amount of money to build, operate, and maintain. All for 400 million tons of carbon dioxide mitigated a year? Do the math. Here's the math on the next page. You take all we put in the atmosphere, you take all of Earth's natural processes and put it in the atmosphere, you divide that by what wind turbines mitigate, it's 0.0098. So I'll give them credit for that last 2 thousandths, or 2 ten-thousandths of a percent, and say, well, it's 1% then. They mitigate less than 1% of the total carbon dioxide output on Earth annually. And that's counting every turbine globally. Is that really saving the environment, is my question? You're mitigating less than 1% of carbon dioxide. Oh, and by the way, you're doing it at $237 a ton. That's not for me. That's from a regional transmission organization. MISO. If you're not familiar with grid dynamics, it's how the grid works is complicated, but the general components of the grid are not. There's three main phases. You get your generators, you get your transmission, you got your distributors. So any plant that's making electricity is a generator. They get it out to the grid, and then regional transmission organizations like MISO take it from generation and deliver it to utilities, and then our utilities distribute it to us. And that's who we pay. We pay our local utilities. Well, MISO is one of the biggest regional transmission organizations in the United States, and they are in the biggest positive wind zones. And that's their figure. $237 a ton it costs to mitigate CO2. They're not paying for that. They're a business. They're in the business to make money. You're paying for that. We're paying for it. That's not our regional transmission organization, by the way. I just use that one because that's where the best capacity factors are in the United States. It's in Iowa and Minnesota. They're in the 30%. Their wind plants produce about 30% of the time, annually. So you'll hear them talk about nameplate capacity, you'll hear them talk about all kinds of other funny things. When they say nameplate capacity, that's what the project could produce if it was producing at 100% right there. So if they say it's a 300 megawatt project, that's not what they're going to produce, that's their nameplate. That's what they're developing to try to produce. So if you've got a 300 megawatt nameplate capacity plant, and it's only producing 30% of the time, and it won't produce 30% of the time here because your wind resource isn't near as good as Iowa, because I got that map too. So we're talking about how much are they really putting out onto the grid. How much coal, natural gas, and nuclear, how much of those other conventional technologies, how much are they really replacing? They're not. Numbers prove it. They're not as green as they want you to believe. They're just not. I wish I were wrong. Because who in the heck is not for clean energy? We would be foolish to say we're not for clean energy here. We're all for clean energy. But not at $237 that it costs a ton. That gets passed on to you and I. Oh, and by the way, half of our tax money goes to support these people too. The production tax credit, renewable energy credits, all kinds of other things, which I'll get to in a second. It's a scam. It doesn't do what they say it does. It just doesn't. It's not helping us become energy independent. It's helping us make sure that we never shut down coal plants. It's the opposite. Without coal, there is no wind. Because unless you want the lights to constantly be going on and off, when you have no idea when it's coming, well, then let's power everything by wind. It drives me crazy when companies like Facebook and some of these green energy left-wing companies say, we're going to power all of our data centers by 100% renewables by 2050. And I'm just like, that's why you create social media and write code, because you don't know a damn thing about physics. This doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. You can't do it. It's not always there. It's only there 30 to 35% of the time in the best regions of this country. And we are not in that here. It's not a climate change thing. It doesn't do anything to help climate change. It just doesn't. There's the numbers that prove it right there. Okay? This is probably my best area. And it's taken a long time. It is a lot of complicated nonsense on the economics of wind. No offense if you are not like-minded like me, because I have a lot of friends that are liberal people, and that's fine. I am a conservative. Most rural people probably are conservative. That might be a generalization, and I apologize if that offends you. But I'm a conservative. I'm a free market conservative. I think that the free market incentivizes companies to bring a product to the market that is affordable for all of us. And when the government props up companies, that's not incentivizing them to give us and deliver us the best product that they can deliver. It makes them a parasite, in my eyes. And that, in my eyes, is what wind is. They are a parasite on the American taxpayer and the utility ratepayers. They steal from us. And they're already a multi-million-dollar company. They claim that they're cheap, but they're not cheap. The economics would make you sick. And there are several main structures that I can talk about that wind will constantly pine for like the production tax credit, when legislators try to take it away from it. Now, the beauty of the production tax credit is it is currently being phased out. Until we get another liberal Congress in there, and they'll probably phase it right back in. It's been an ebb and flow since 1992. The production tax credit was created in 1992 to help get wind energy and solar started. For solar, it's usually called the investment tax credit, the ITC. So just like they'll say, coal gets subsidies, natural gas gets subsidies, oh, what about mineral rights? It is true that all generators get subsidies. That's a fact. Coal does get subsidized. So does nuclear. So does gas. I don't like any of that. I say take it all away. How does giving people our money and allowing them to turn over millions and millions of dollars of profit, incentivizing them to bring forth a good product to the market? It doesn't. It doesn't make sense. So right now the production tax credit is at 80%. So if a project is constructed, they will get 80% of their generation is going to be coming from the backs of the American taxpayer at 2.4 cents a kilowatt hour. We are subsidizing that. How many of you are on Facebook and you saw nothing but a bunch of wind energy, positive wind energy posts leading up to the budget bill discussion in DC? There was pro-wind stuff coming across my timeline all the time because they were boosting everything they can, saying that the federal government was about ready to cut their legs out from underneath and take away all their money. I saw all the time. Apparently I'm on Facebook way more than people. Facebook's powerful. It's a powerful tool. It will mobilize it. You can get a lot of information out there quick. But I saw for 2 weeks leading up to that budget bill that they were worried sick that the 2.4 cents was going to get cut to 1.2 cents because 2.4 was an inflated increase on the American taxpayer. The production tax credit was originally 1.2 cents a kilowatt hour. And in the late 90s, it got bumped up for inflation. So while things are getting more expensive, so let's just take more from the taxpayer and help the wind developers out. Well, they were going to return that back to pre-inflated levels. The wind developers freaked out. My Facebook timeline was blown up with, oh crap, please call your legislators. Don't let them take away our PTC 2.4 cents. So what does that tell you about how expensive they actually are? They know that they're expensive. They know that they need our money. Like I said though, the positive is, this is phasing out. It's scheduled to go down to 60% next month, then 40, then 20. Don't ever let your legislators who go to Washington, D.C. allow it to come back. Don't do it. Make these people stand up on their own ground. They are redistributing our money, paying you, the landowner, when you sign your lease. You're getting paid back with your own money. And like I said, every generator does get subsidized. Look at how much they get subsidized on. Wind and solar get subsidized at 64% of the annual pie. Wind is like 31%, something like that. So 31% of the 100% of federal subsidies from our tax money going to electric generation, 31% of that goes to wind. Less than 9% is like nuclear and coal is like 8 or something like that. I don't like those either. I agree with when it comes to it. Say, well, everybody gets subsidized. I'm like, I agree. Nobody should. You say that to them, they go, don't take away my 31%. I'm just saying everybody gets subsidized. Well, yeah, they can subsidize at 9, you can subsidize at 31. You think that's a great deal. And you don't produce crap. What you're putting out for the grid over here is nothing. A nuclear plant can affect 10 acres to what it would take 35,000 acres to produce 30% of the time. And a nuclear plant can give you what you want right now, whenever you want. Yeah, it gives off radioactive waste, but you want to reduce carbon emissions, you want to save the earth. Nuclear is the easiest way to reduce carbon emissions at an affordable rate for all of us. That's just a fact, because they have a 91% capacity factor. They can crank out a ton of energy on demand anytime. And they're subsidized a lot less than wind. So I always ask them, well, what's the return on investment? What's the ROI? You're getting 31% of our tax money. How much generation are you actually giving back to the people? It's a minuscule amount. Everybody gets subsidized. I agree, take them all away. And then watch them clamor. Oh, no, 31%. They know they're expensive. The production tax credit is a scam on us. And we almost got that inflation rate cut out from underneath us. But then we had a bunch of, don't get me going, I try not to curse. My senator, my Republican senator in Ohio screwed us. Rob Portman screwed us. So did John Thune from South Dakota, and so did Charles Grassley. Charles Grassley is the biggest fraud conservative on the planet, from Iowa. You talk to people out in Iowa, they can't stand him. They're going to replace him, or hopefully he just retires. Portman's lost my vote. He screwed us on this. The next one. The next one. They're going to argue with you and say, well, credits are not the same as subsidies. Subsidies we get, credits we never get. Here's what I say back to them. Does a tax credit hurt the treasury balance of the United States of America? Yes, it does. Who makes up for that? Us. So don't sit there and tell me that a tax credit, like a renewable energy certificate, is any different than you get the PTC. It isn't. It is taking money out of the United States Treasury. It's just money that was never transferred to you in the first place. You're getting a break on it. Somebody has to fund this country. That's us. So these people are screwing us out of more money by not being able to put money into the Treasury because they get renewable energy credits for their generation. And it's a scam at how it actually works. Their definition of one renewable energy credit is 1 megawatt of electric generation from a renewable resource that replaces one fossil fuel megawatt. But the reality is they can't replace it. There is no wind turbines without coal and nuclear and natural gas plants to back them up all the time. And nobody tracks that. It's just another way for them to lower their tax liability, hurt the Treasury, and put it more on us. Because they can sell these things off across state lines and get credit in both states. Drives me crazy when companies like Whirlpool, oh yeah, we love wind turbines. Yeah, you do. You like the renewable energy credits because you're lowering your tax liability, screwing your citizens. Facebook says the same thing. Amazon says the same thing. There's nothing I can do because I hate one of them all, so Amazon's probably still going to give me money anyway. I'll try not to give them money. They take me off on renewable energy credits. It's just another way that they rip us off. Nobody tracks this stuff. There is no tracking agency that says how many renewable energy credits you get. They just award them. I don't even know what the system is. I've never been able to figure out how they even track that. But the reality is this: you can produce 1 megawatt of wind here in Indiana and sell it to somebody in North Carolina. And how do you know that the electrons from that generation and that megawatt is going to North Carolina? You don't. It goes out on the grid. It just goes right to that outlet right there. You don't know where those things are going. How can you track that? You can't. This is a scam. And we have to make up the difference because they're getting tax credits on our backs. This one drives me crazy. It's called the Uniform Clearing Price Construct and Wholesale Energy Market Auction Design. This is essentially the way that electricity is bought and sold on the market when there's a peak demand. So you might get you might get a phone call, like one of those robocalls, or you might get an email from your electric utility in the middle of the summer saying we are experiencing high peak demand. Anything you can do to help conserve right now, please back off. Well, when those kinds of things happen in our summer months, late afternoons, and they can forecast, regional transmission organizations can forecast when there's going to be a peak demand, they basically ballpark how many megawatts need to be generated right now on time. They know exactly what the grid is producing at this time, and they have to figure out how to meet that difference. And here's how they do that. Generators start to bid in certain amounts of megawatts until that demand is met. And they bid in at specific prices. And those prices are organized from cheapest to highest until the demand's met. Because wind gets renewable energy credits, because wind gets a production tax credit, things of that nature, they can literally bid negative and get in these auctions. Almost like they're paying the grid to take their electricity. The production tax credit and other incentives that they get will allow them to parasitically make their way into this auction, and then guess what they get paid? The last bid in. So that last bid in might be $30 a megawatt hour from a nuclear plant that's supplying that last amount, and everybody in that auction, regardless of what price they bid in, get paid 30. The uniform clearing price. They get paid the uniform clearing price of the top generator. So it's a way that wind can guarantee that they are in because they're cheap on the backs of the American taxpayer, and then they get paid top dollar. There's only one other alternative right now in the energy markets, and that's called pay as bid. That's not good either. Pay as bid would hurt electric consumers, because that's one of the number one things that pro-wind people that understand this, that's what they say. Well, you want pay as bid? No, I don't want pay as bid. Well, then the UCP is how we got to do it. No, the UCP is a dinosaur. The UCP was made long before we had any intermittent renewable technologies generated to the grid. It's not designed for those types of plants in mind. So it needs to be changed. It needs to be updated somehow. I don't know what the right answer is to fix the UCP issue. And it is, pay as bid is not better. That will raise prices on us. But I know this, that's a dinosaur, and it needs to change. So our energy people and our policymakers that deal with energy issues, they know that this is flawed. So we got to put pressure on them to figure out what they're going to do about that. Because that's not right. You can guarantee yourself getting paid $30 a megawatt hour when you bid negative $23 because you get subsidies on the backs of the American taxpayer. You're guaranteed in the auction you get paid top dollar. That's a ripoff. Another one's called imposed cost. A lot of energy policy and market regulations basically say when the wind is blowing or the sun is shining, conventional plants have to ramp down their output to the grid. So when that wind plant, 30% of the time, is giving you that 300 megawatts, well, there's 300 megawatts that have to be ramped down somewhere else from a conventional plant. If you know anything about generation, those plants aren't designed to do that. Base load conventional plants they are constructed to produce that base load without fluctuation. So when they are forced to ramp down and ramp back up and ramp down and ramp back up, that imposes cost on them. And that imposes cost on them, and that's going to raise their rates. And who do you think is going to get that passed on to? Us. So we have terrible energy policies in place and market regulations in place that force our most reliable, cheapest, affordable plants to constantly fluctuate their baseload capacity when the wind blows and when the sun shines. And we're paying the difference. They impose costs on those conventional plants. Those are policies that don't make sense. Not for my wall, anyway. I think I saw something where Red's talking about the Lazard study on levelized cost of electricity. It was like a big, long article. I thought it was in the Ferris Tribune, but I was unable to find it. I can't remember where it was. It was somewhere over here, though. And they love saying, wind is cheap. Wind and solar are cheaper than coal and gas and nuclear. The levelized cost of electricity says so. That's because the levelized cost of electricity doesn't bake in all the upfront capital costs, all the upfront subsidies, and all the other taxpayer ratepayer fund structures that I've already talked about. It doesn't include those in their cost. It just basically says, once those things are up and the wind is free, the fuel is free, here's the cost. It doesn't bake in everything else that they've had to take from us just to get it up and running to generate. That's why that study is flawed, and there's plenty of energy experts that rip the Lazard study apart on those grounds. Equating the levelized cost of electricity, wind, and solar with coal and natural gas plants is fallacious. It's impossible to replace. You always have to have a backup there. So there's a good argument. Don Deers, former GE executive and policy advisor. If you know anything about GE, they love wind turbines. They make them. So here's somebody who used to work for GE that says that's bogus. It doesn't look at it the right way, because it doesn't bake in all the subsidies that come up front and the capital costs to actually construct a project before generation occurs. Here's a good one. I've had some people over here, you know, talking about how, well, the government says this, the government says this, I believe the government, okay? Well, U.S. Energy Information Administration says the duty cycle for intermittent renewable resources, wind and solar, is not operator controlled, but it is dependent on the weather and the solar cycle. As a result, their levelized cost of electricity values are not directly comparable to dispatchable technologies. You're trying to compare apples to oranges in terms of generation. They do it different ways. The end product is electrons that we all use in our homes. We power things with it. But how they get to those electrons is completely different. You're comparing apples to oranges in terms of cost when you apply the levelized cost of electricity. Kevin Martis, like I said, is a good friend of mine. You want to get some great information? Look it up. The Interstate Informed Citizens Coalition of Michigan. He's fantastic. He basically says even Lazard goes to great lengths to explain that there are significant regional cost variations with wind energy as the wind resource varies. So they'll even tell you that LCOE isn't something that can be redundantly reciprocated and reproduced in different regions of the United States because of the wind resources vary. There's too many variabilities in it to actually say that this cost is cheaper than conventional plants. All wind energy does is save some fuel and some variable operations and maintenance. I'm aware of no place in the United States that unsubsidized wind would be cheaper. So that's essentially how they try to say, well, we're cheap. We're cheaper than conventional plants. And they cite levelized cost of electricity. It's just not true. It's disingenuous. If you want to look at cost, shouldn't the cost be embedded in how much it costs to actually construct the plant? How much operational and maintenance factors are included in the plant? Of course. We're technically retiring plants that we have paid off that are producing cheap energy now for more wind. It's expensive. We're prematurely retiring plants that we have paid off. And that's where the biggest cost is on our electric bills, is when there's new technology and new plants constructed. The construction costs are enormous, and we all absorb that. But over time, they obviously pay themselves off, just like wind turbines would pay themselves off over time. But we're retiring reliable, dispatchable baseload power before their time is up to put more expensive wind on the grid. And that's what they're seeing in Germany right now. That's what they're seeing in Ontario and Canada right now. People cannot afford their electric bills. They're $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month. That would break me. It would break me, I know that. So when they say that they're cheap and they cite this, they don't consider the benefit subsidies that they get. This right here is the one that galls me the most. So hopefully I've tried to make it as simple as I can because I know it's complex. I've taken you through all kinds of different structures and subsidies and credits and market advantages that wind has. And out of all of that, they're going to actually come to your community and ask you for a payment in lieu of taxes. They're going to ask you for a monstrous tax abatement on their property liability. The project we have in my county is a $660 million capital project. Can you imagine at the specific villages of each township what the property taxes would be on $660 million? That would probably be worth it for our county. They get 95% of tax abatement on that. They pay 5% of that. They're getting 95% tax abatement on the back of my community. So my community has 152 turbines, and we're getting anywhere from $2.1 to $2.7 million a year on a $660 million capital project. They own $660 million in their own equipment on our ground in Amber County, and we're getting $2.1 to $2.7 million a year from it. Anybody ever upgrade your property? Ever put a swimming pool in, build a barn, build something agriculture that's going to help the farm produce more? Taxes has to go up on that. When you improve your property, did your taxes go up? Yes, it did. I dug a pond, my taxes went up. Where's my tax abatement? I live here. Where's my pilot for my pond? I don't want my taxes to go up. Give me pilot. But you should give them the wind companies. I live here, they know. They're the foreigners, they're the invaders. Pilot is a slap in your face. If wind was so cheap, they wouldn't have to ask for pilot. They can get this project all the way down to, we're ready to go, let's negotiate pilot, and if your commissioners don't negotiate the structure that they need, they won't be able to build it. Even with all the things that I've said. It's still uneconomical, it's not viable. So when they tell you they're cheap, I don't know how they can say that with a straight face. Tell them, if you're cheap, don't ask for pilot. Don't give Cass County $2 to $3 million a year. Give Cass County $40 to $50 million a year. Pay for your property taxes and your capital, just like every other landowner in this room has to pay when you improve your property. Pilot is a slap in your face. I would never accept pilot if I was an elected official. If I have to live under wind turbines, you're paying full freight. You're giving our community 40 or 50 million, not 2 million. It should be worth 40 or 50 million what they're going to do to you, your quality of life. Okay. Pay attention to legislation. That's the biggest thing that you can do. Truth be told, it's no different than most policy issues. Your local government and your local decisions are more important and directly affect you more than what your state representative can, or your state senator can, or your national representative or national senator can. Okay, start on the ground level here and try to work with your county officials. They're the ones that are ultimately going to have to say. But pay attention to what happens in D.C. I'm telling you, the wind industry was having a fit, and the Republicans caved. 4 Republicans caved, and we got screwed. They were this close to making wind developers stand on their own ground. This close. And they caved until last minute because of millions and millions and millions of dollars in lobbying efforts by the American Wind Energy Association and all their cronies. They were freaking out. One of the wind developers in my community sent a letter out to 20 people in our convention and visitors bureau, to the 20 officers of that. And my father-in-law is on that. And he's not a big turbine fan. He sent it to me. I said, if they're so affordable, why should Pine do her job in her industry? Why are they lobbying D.C. so hard if they're so affordable? So I emailed, I replied all. And I hammered him. And like 6 of those people were like, oh, just shut up. I'm like, yeah, I know. You live in town, you don't care. You live in the city, you don't care about us. That's the other thing that drives me crazy. City residents, they should have a say on wind turbines for their township. You want to put wind turbines near the city, then put wind turbines near the city. How many cities around here have said no? 2 or 3 mile buffers. Well, where's our 2 or 3 mile buffers in the rural community then? I've gotten myself in hot water many times because I teach at the city school system in my community. 2 of our school districts get wind money. My school district is the poorest one out of all of them, even before wind money. And we still do more with less than the other two school districts that are getting wind money. And I commute from the country into the city. So you think the city people in that community are happy with me being this vocal and outspoken? I don't know. They've come after my job. They've come after my job. One of them was a former judge. And I just basically said, did I get a vote on your city income tax issue? Did I get a vote on your city income tax issue for the city? Did I get a vote on the pool levy issue that you guys are going to put up a new community pool that everybody in the county would use, except the county residents that are outside the city would have to pay more? Did I get a vote on that? No, because those are city issues. Well, don't you tell me what the hell I have to accept as far as zoning outline for rural township. You want to have a say, that's fine. Have a say for your township that the city is in. This should be a township decision. Let the township people decide. I don't know if you can ever get there. I hope you can. I know that a lot of our township trustees in Howard County, some of them are signed up. But our county commissioners, they're not going to they will not grant pilot. They're not going to grant it this time. 3 new commissioners and the 3 old commissioners ran the last pilot, and these new commissioners see how big of a break-in advantage a wind developer gets in our community. They're not going to let them do it again. So that's kind of our last line of defense, is the deny pilot. This has got to be something you guys decide. The federal government is not going to help you. They proved that. You're this close, you just didn't get it done for us. So I'm taking off. I call Portland's office almost every day. They're probably sick and tired of hearing me.
Mama.
I have more money, I have money to get some stuff. Okay, other things that you guys can control, that you've got to try to demand that your county officials control, is what is the road management agreement, the road use management agreement. That is entirely in your hands. And from what I understand, there's negotiations and mediations going on right now. I've heard that from a lot of people from this community. When they did the RUMA for Van Wert County, our current project, they didn't double it. If those things ever have to come out, this is on the hook. Van Wert County taxpayers. Make sure your RUMA agreement has bond in it for decommission as well as construction. If this goes through, you want to have enough money in there to pull these things out if they ever have to be pulled out. So you guys are on the hook for it. Your commissioners and your elected officials should have complete control over that. What is the proper road use maintenance agreement? Make sure whatever they're thinking, ask them to double it or ask them to be sure that are you including the same cost of those things coming out as what it's going to cost to put in to repair our roads. What about maintenance? There are cranes in the Blue Creek Wind Project every day. I have friends that run trucking companies, they haul grain and whatnot, and they're through that area every day, and there is not one day where they say there isn't a crane out there working on one of those turbines somewhere. It's every day. They're using those roads every day. So how much money are they going to kick in for the daily use of just general maintenance that they're going to have when the turbine breaks down? Because these gearboxes fail a lot quicker than they say they fail. Gearboxes are failing in 4 and 5 years, not 20 years, they say. And don't think for 2 seconds that as these turbines get older, that they spin a lot less, because they do. They're like your car. They depreciate the minute they start to operate. They're machines. They're going to depreciate. Another thing, make sure the decommissioning plan per turbine is fair. And I'll give Lynn Studebaker credit for this. She's the one that actually found companies and estimates of $500,000 to $700,000 a turbine. In Van Wert right now it's $5,000. Our decommissioning bond is $5,000 a turbine. Anybody run cranes in here? How long can I get a crane out to a 660-foot turbine or a 452-foot turbine for $5,000? Probably enough for you to transport it, unload it off the trailer, and look at you. Where's the juice is running, buddy? Where's the extra money? The good thing is that it's about to be renegotiated by our new commissioners. So thankfully they can up that money. But they're stuck. The turbines are there. They're up and running. How much leverage do they really have at this point? The wind company can basically do what they want at this point. So we're going to see how much good faith the wind company has when they renegotiate the decommissioning plan. Because that was written into the policy, that it will be revisited based on depreciation and inflation rates. Make sure that anything that your commissioners or your county elected officials agree to with RES gets passed over to a new company. Because a lot of times these companies will develop a project and sell it off to somebody else. From what I understand, there's been wind rights being paid here for 6 or 7 years now, right? It wasn't by RES. I don't know who the other company was, but I bet you RES bought those rights, did they not? That happens all the time. It's a shell game. These companies are shell games. They do that to limit their tax liability. Because you know what happens? When a company sells a project to another company, their depreciation on the turbine, that resets. So even though that turbine's 10 years old, they bought a 10-year-old set of turbines, they get full depreciation again, instead of starting at where it is. So they do that all the time. It's a shell game. That's why there's 20 different names. RES has got 40 different projects probably in this country. It's called something something LLC, something something LLC, something something LLC. Just be careful with that. Make sure that there's language that transfers any liability onto the new company if RES sells. Because chances are they probably will. Okay? What is going to be your complaint resolution system? These turbines go up. What power do you have as citizens when you are experiencing noise impacts? When you are experiencing infrasound? When you are experiencing shadow flicker? When it starts to degrade your quality of life, what is it going to say in the wind ordinance that says, here is how the county is going to demand res mitigates these effects that you have? There better be language in there. Otherwise, res is going to do nothing. They're all about, let's turn these things and let's pocket the cash. Those are things you totally have in your control. You just got to ask your county elected officials to demand those things. If you go to our Citizens for Clear Skies Facebook page, if you go to the Interstate Informed Citizens Coalition, these are all great organizations in multiple states that say the same things I'm saying to you tonight.
No.
I didn't just learn this overnight, and by no means have I got it all figured out. I do my best. But these are all great organizations that if you are fighting and you don't want these things, there's your help. And these people will be generous. They will give you their time because they always say the same thing. I wish somebody would have done that for me. I wish somebody would have stepped up for me. So go visit these sites. Start asking people questions that run these sites. I promise you they will come to your defense. There was a couple of local residents commenting on the Coalition for Rural Property Rights in Iowa group that I know yesterday. And I was in there commenting too. It had 15,000 views in less than 24 hours. 15,000. People will help you if you just ask for the help. Because it's the same story, different community, and a different state. We're all facing the same thing. Final thoughts. They don't care about wind resource. Because if you go to that link right there, that's the National Renewable Energy Laboratory Wind Resource Map. Find where Cass County is on it and see what the wind resource here is. It's not that good, I promise you that. That's why they want 660 footers.
Hey, Mama.
They want to get those things as high as they can to maximize as much of your core wind resource as they can. They're here not because of wind, they're here because of the ordinance. That's why they're here. 1,000 feet to a house? Let's go there, that's an easy one. How many of you felt like you were blindsided by this? That's how they work. What I don't get is, if you want to be a good steward and a good partner to the community, announce your intentions to develop a wind project before you sign one landowner up. Hold a forum like this and say, here's what we would like to do. Write articles to the newspaper saying, we're res, we are here, here's what we would like to do. That should be a law, that you should have to do that before they sign up one landowner. Because they know that they would never get a project done if they did that. Because people would be blindsided then. I didn't know people had wind rights in my community for 6 or 7 years before I got threatened with this project either. And I'd like to think that I pay attention to local politics, state politics, and national politics. I don't feel like I'm an uninformed citizen when it comes to politics and economics, and I was blindsided. Because that's how they operate. They come in with closing night, sign up as many landowners as they can, and then the ones that are on the fence and won't sign, they go, well, your neighbors are signed up, man. You're going to be surrounded by them anyway, you might as well sign. It's coming no matter what, you might as well sign. And I know that that's probably true in some sections of some of your townships, and it's probably completely a lie in some of your townships. Just go around and ask your neighbors flat out, did you sign up for res? From what I understand, there are people who live around people, and everybody is signed up around them. But that's generally not the case. They say that. It's coming no matter what. All your neighbors signed up. They use that line on a lot of damn residents. Don't be exposed like crazy for it. It's a flat out lie. We got a plat map just like you guys have over here. And we've got color coded with every township, all 7 townships, and the Apex project map. And there's at least 70% of our landowners that want nothing to do with it. There are small pockets of landowners that do. And they say we are the vocal minority. We're the squeaky wheel. I'm like, I got a plat map right here that says you're a liar. 70% of people agree with me. 30% agree with you. So zip it. And that's how you have to go after them. You have to fight. You have to fight. Bottom line is, will this be an overall net benefit for the community? Not a net economic benefit for the community. It would be very difficult for an elected official to turn away $2 or $3 million. They could do a lot of community good with that. My community is a little different than yours. We're rural. We're not overly rich. We're not dirt poor. We're kind of middle class people just enjoying the country. $2 or $3 million would make a big difference. But I can tell you this, I haven't seen a big difference in our community. I don't see these monstrous improvements. I'm just like, wow, Van Wert looks like Las Vegas. This is great. I just don't see it. It looks like the same Van Wert to me. We still have the same problems. So you can't just look at it as an economic benefit. What about the social fabric? What about the people you've known and lived by your entire life? What's that going to do to your relationships? If somebody puts a turd right by your house and you've been friends with that person your whole life, I can tell you right now, I will never be friends with my friend, former friend, who's a wind developer now.